All right, I want to call to order the budget amendment hearing for Murphysboro Community Unit District 186. And Terry, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Beavers?
Here.
Dr. Dora? Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mrs. James? Here. Mrs. Evaldi, absent. Mr. Rungy?
Here. Next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Brown, will you do the honors, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next item is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes? And I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda. So moved. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is the presentation of the amended budget. Mrs.
And
Bush?
the amended budget has been on display since the last board meeting. I have not had any questions or comments up until this point on the budget. And I also presented to the board just kind of a Excel worksheet on changes, original budget, revised budget, and what those changes, and I've given you that again. So, I mean, the biggest part of the biggest reason we did a budget amendment this time is we were looking at a balanced budget when we did the original budget back and put that on display in August, adopted in September. After that point, we finished our negotiations with MEA and gave staff, both certified and non-certified, and administrators raises, as well as the HRA, and did a textbook adoption. So those were probably the biggest things, increased costs that weren't included in the budget. I did go through line by line revenues, expenses in every fund, and look at those and drill down on the general ledgers and look at, what do I expect is still coming? What do I think salaries are going to be? Teaching salaries, those are easy, that's a contract, but non-certified, those can be a little different with hours and in the school year. So, my projections is as best as I can. Revenues for the education fund, those only changed by a little under $64,000 total, which is kind of a drop in the bucket when you look at $24 million overall. Increases in all, and I kind of compressed this down. The budget document is a much larger document, but this, this spreadsheet kind of shows more compressed the funds that we're actually dealing with, that we actually have expenses in. Went through those line by line and looked at where our actual expenses are, and that increased expenses $643,000. And as I said before, the salary increases, the benefit increases, and then some of those supplies and materials. There were also some mere changes. One of the things we had talked about previously is a final expense payment on a faculty member that we were settling a contract on. I'd originally included that in salaries, and that actually should have been recorded in purchase services, which is why purchase services increased so much. So nothing unexpected since the budget revision, or the budget that we put on display, and some of the conversations that we've had along the way. Really no big surprises there. Still looking at the projection, and I still consider this to be a worst case scenario for deficit spending in the budget on the actual budget. Where are we at? If you look at page 2, it's line 22, shows our receipts under expenditures, $704,000. So that's a combination of the $560,000 that we projected that we would deficit spend, plus that extra deficit spending with the Illini Cloud, that where we are spending out the balance of the Illini Cloud consortium. That should be, hopefully will be expended out by the end of the year, by end of June. Steve's working on trying to make that happen and get that dissolved and finished out, which has been the whole project a big undertaking, and I want to thank Mr. Carrington for all the work he's done. We have benefited greatly in this district for being part of the Illini Cloud. So this is just kind of the tail end of that. The remainder of the funds, which are kind of small, in comparison, really very small changes, but I took a look to see, you know, how realistic, you know, where we were in investments, property taxes, those projections, and what those look like. And made some of those to bring us closer to actual. The auditors always like to see that at the end of the year, what those actual funds look like. So, really, you know, nothing, as I was going through those adjustments, that really jumped out at me. Probably the biggest thing, and it's reflected, on that same page too in the actual budget, is the sale of the bonds. That wouldn't have been included in the original budget because we've been talking about that, but that hadn't been something that the board had approved. And still won't be approved in final form until later in the board meeting, when we hopefully pull the trigger and finish selling those bonds. So, really no big true surprises. Those were the biggest things that we talked about in the education fund. All of the remaining funds are still fairly close to where we started. You know, capital projects, we actually have $170,000 in revenue more than we expected, and part of that is due to that. We talked last month about the higher than anticipated insurance proceeds, and the county facility sales tax were coming along a little bit better than we thought, so that's always good news there. So, no, nothing really big. I guess any questions for board members or anything else that you'd like to talk about in more detail?
Board have questions?
Where on the, I didn't see where this was posted. Where is it posted?
And I don't know if it was posted on our website. We typically, until it gets approved, it won't be posted on our website. The original budget's posted, but once board approves, and I can file at the county courthouse with the county clerk's
Then it
office.
gets posted then?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I post it. When it's signed by all of you on the front page, and then we scan it and post it.
Other questions?
I just have a clarification so I understand this.
Which
So
page are you on?
I'm not real. I'm looking for the information. So, how much over our expenses are we than our revenue this year, or where can I find that number?
We will be, if you look at page 2 in the budget, on line 21, that shows, line 10 shows our receipts, or actually it's line 11, total receipts, 22 expenditures,
Gotcha.
or 21, and so that line there in the middle of the page, so
So that-
704, deficit spend 704, O&M 57,000, and in the O&M fund, we are, you know, we have had a little bit of balances built up in the O&M fund, and that's where we're doing some of the capital projects, purchase services, which are routine things that we pay out of that fund, supplies, which are custodial supplies, you know, regular maintenance type supplies, and some of those smaller capital projects that we do along the line. So a lot of those deficit spending, especially capital projects that we, $3.5 million, that is planned deficit spending because we have the funds on hand and we're, you know, board approved spending those things down.
So we're looking at the beginning fund balance for next year, 2.7.
Yep. And I still say that's a worst case scenario. I really anticipate it'll be somewhat higher than that, but I don't like to shock you. So if it's 2.7, if I say 2.7 and it ends up being 3, you'll be happy about it. If I say 2.7 and it's 5, you won't be as happy about it, so.
Other questions? All right, then I will open it up to the audience. Are there any comments, questions from the audience on the amended budget? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the budget amendment hearing. So moved. Second, just pick one of those two. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.